I called the house and let the phone ring. At least I had the impression it was ringing. Oh, a minute or more. Nobody answered, so Mr. Ewalt suggested that we go to the house and try to wake them up. But when we got there, I didn't want to do it. Go to the house. I was frightened, and I don't know why, because it never occurred to me. Well, something like that just doesn't. But the sun was so bright. Everything looked too bright and quiet. And then I saw that all the cars were there, even Kenyon's old coyote wagon. Finally, Nancy said she'd go with me. We went around to the kitchen door, and of course it wasn't locked. The only person who ever locked doors around there was Mrs. Helm. The family never did. We walked in, and I saw right away that the Clutters hadn't eaten breakfast. There were no dishes, nothing on the stove. Then I noticed something funny. Nancy's purse was lying on the floor, sort of open. We passed on through the dining room and stopped at the bottom of the stairs. Nancy's room was just at the top. I called her name and started up the stairs, and Nancy Ewalt followed. The sound of our footsteps frightened me more than anything. They were so loud, and everything else was so silent. Nancy's door was open. The curtains hadn't been drawn, and the room was full of sunlight. I don't remember screaming. Nancy Ewalt says I did. Screamed and screamed. I only remember Nancy's teddy bear staring at me, and Nancy, and running.
There's a full moon, and I thought maybe if Nancy wanted to, we might go for a drive out to McKinney Lake, or go to the movies in Garden City, but when I called her, it must have been about 10 of 7, she said she'd have to ask her father. Then she came back and said the answer was no, because we'd stayed out so late the night before, but said why didn't I come over and watch television? I spent a lot of time at the Clutters watching television.
We were like sisters. At least that's how I felt about her, as though she were my sister. I couldn't go to school, not for the first few days. I stayed out of school until after the funeral. So did Bobby Rupp. For a while, Bobby and I were always together. He's a nice boy. He has a good heart. But nothing very terrible had ever happened to him before, like losing anyone he'd loved. And then on top of that, having to take a lie detector test. I don't mean he was bitter about that. He realized the police were doing what they had to do. Some hard things, 2 or 3, had already happened to me, but not to him. So it was a shock when he found out maybe life isn't one long basketball game. The radio was always playing. We didn't have anything to say ourselves, except once in a while Bobby'd say how much he loved Nancy and how he could never care about another girl. Well, I was sure Nancy wouldn't have wanted that, and I told him so.
See, Nancy's the only girl I ever dated. I'd known her all my life. We'd gone to school together from the 1st grade. Always, as long as I can remember, she was pretty and popular. A person, even when she was a little kid. I mean, she just made everybody feel good about themselves. The first time I dated her was when we were in the 8th grade. Most of the boys in our class wanted to take her to the 8th grade graduation dance, and I was surprised. I mean, I was pretty proud of myself when she said she would go with me. We were both 12, and my dad lent me the car, and I drove her to the dance. The more I saw her, the more I liked her. The whole family, too. There wasn't any other family like them. Not around here, at least, or not that I know of. Mr. Clutter may have been more strict about some things, religion and so on, but he never tried to make you feel like he was right and you were wrong.
I remember, I think it was Monday, we drove down to the river. We parked on the bridge. You could see the house from there. The Clutter house. And part of the land, Mr. Cuter's fruit orchard, and the wheat fields going away. Way off in one of the fields a bonfire was burning. They were burning stuff from the house. Everywhere you looked, there was something to remind you. Men with nets and poles were fishing along the banks of the river, but not fishing for fish. Bobby said they were looking for the weapons. The knife. The gun.
Outstanding athlete. Always first team at school. Basketball, baseball, football. He was always a star player. Pretty good student, too. A marks in most subjects. history, mechanical engineering, drawing. After he graduated from school in June '49, he wanted to go on to college, study to be an engineer. But we couldn't do it. The plane would never give us the money. Never have had any money. Our farm here, it's only 44 acres. We barely scratch out a living. I guess Dick resented it, not getting to college. The first job he had, Santa Fe Railways, Kansas City. Made $75 a week. He figured that was enough to get married on. So him and Carol got married. She wasn't but 16. He was barely 19 himself. I never thought nothing good would come of it. Didn't neither.
Next thing I knew, Dick was talking about killing Mr. Clutter. Said that him and Perry was going to go out there next week and rob the place. And how he was going to kill all the witnesses, the Clutters, and anybody else who happened to be around. He described to me dozens of times how he was going to do it. How him and Perry were going to get out there and tie him down and gun him down. I told him, Dick, you'll never get away with it. But I can't honestly say I ever tried to persuade him different. Because I never thought for a minute that he would do it. I mean, actually carry it out. I thought it was just talk, like you hear plenty of times in Lansing. That's about all you hear. What a fellow's going to do when he gets out, the holdups, the robberies, and so forth. It's nothing but brag, mostly. Nobody takes it serious. That's why when I heard it on your phones. Well, I didn't hardly believe it. Still, and all it happened, just like Dick said it would.
There ain't anybody that can connect me with that goddamn murder. Checks. A little petty thievery, but I'm no goddamn killer. I've been telling you the goddamn truth. Perry Smith killed the Clutters. It was Perry. I couldn't stop him. He killed them all.
I haven't seen Perry in 4 years, or heard from him since he was paroled. Last summer when he came out of prison, he visited my father in Reno. In a letter my father told me he was returning to Atlanta and taking Perry with him. Then he wrote again, I think in September, and he was very angry. He and Perry had a quarrel and separated before they reached the border. Perry turned back. My father went on to Alaska alone.
I didn't realize what I'd done till I heard the sound. Somebody drowning, screaming underwater. I handed the knife to Dick. I said, "Finish him, you'll feel better." Dick tried or pretended to, but the man had the strength of 10 men. He was half out of his ropes. His hands were free. Dick panicked. He wanted to get the hell out of there, but I wouldn't let him go. The man would have died anyway, I know that, but I couldn't leave him like he was. I told Dick to hold the flashlight, focus it, and I aimed the gun. It just exploded, went blue, just blazed up. Jesus, I'll never understand why they didn't hear the noise 20 miles around. I gave the gun to Dick. I told him I'd done all I could do. He took aim and she turned her face to the wall. That last shell was a bitch to locate. Dick went under the bed to get it. Then we closed Mrs. Cutler's door and went downstairs to the office. We waited there like we had when we first came. Looked through the blinds to see if there was a hired man was poking around or anything, or anybody else who might have heard the gunfire, but it was just the same, not a sound. Just the wind and Dick panting like wolves were after him. Right there in those few seconds before we ran out to the car and drove away. That's when I decided I better shoot him. He said over and over he'd drummed into me, no witnesses, and I thought, he's a witness. I don't know what stopped me. God knows I should have done it. Shot him dead, got in the car, and kept on going till I lost myself in Mexico.
He can seem so warm-hearted and sympathetic. He can fool you. He can make you feel so sorry for him.